Welcome back to the Haunted Grove. My name is Megan, and if you love monsters, mysteries, and things that go bump in the night, then you are in the right place. Okay, let's get spooky with 5 unexplained disappearances from the Alaska Triangle. On January 26, 1950, a United States Air Force C-54 cargo plane was scheduled to transport servicemen from Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage down to Great Falls Air Force Base in Montana. After some delays due to engine problems, the flight took off at 1 p.m. on January 26 and was scheduled to be in the air for 8 hours before reaching its destination in Montana. There were 42 people on the plane, 8 crew members, 32 servicemen, and 2 civilians. When the flight failed to make its mandatory radio check-ins and didn't show up at the Air Force Base in Montana, a huge search and rescue was sent out that included both the U.S. military and the Canadian military. They did not think this was going to be a difficult search and rescue, right? They knew the flight path that the plane was on, and it's a large, shiny, gray, 17-ton military plane. But after a month, the search and rescue was called off with no trace of the plane or the 42 passengers on board ever being found. In October of 1972, pilot Don Jonz was scheduled to fly a small twin-engine Cessna from Anchorage to Juneau. And he would have 3 passengers on that flight: Alaskan Congressman Nick Begich, along with his aide Russel Brown, and U.S. House Majority Leader Hale Boggs from Louisiana. They were flying from Anchorage to Juneau to attend an election rally. At some point during the 3-hour flight, the plane, along with all 4 people on board, disappeared. And when the plane failed to arrive in Juneau, a massive search and rescue effort was launched. The search party consisted of almost 100 civilian and military airplanes, as well as boats and other vehicles on the ground, and covered over 32,000 square miles. The search lasted for almost 40 days before it was eventually called off. State and federal law required the Cessna to carry a transmitter, but no signal from the transmitter was ever picked up. And to this day, no one knows what happened. The Seward Highway is a 125-mile stretch of road that runs from Anchorage to Seward, Alaska. It's a scenic highway where the first 50 miles runs between the Chugach Mountains and the Cook Inlet. There are sections on the highway where the road on one side butts almost straight up to the rock face of the mountain, and then the other side is like a sheer drop down to the ocean. So there are these designated areas along the road called pullouts where you can pull your car over if you need to, because otherwise there's not enough room on the side of the road on either edge to get over far enough to be safe. At 8:30 a.m. on October 27th in 2008, an Alaska State Trooper was driving down the Seward Highway when he passed a 1996 green GMC pickup truck that had been called in a few minutes earlier for driving erratically on the road. So the trooper pulls his car around, flips his lights on, and pulls the truck over on the pullout on mile 106 of the Seward Highway. The driver of the truck was 40-year-old Sheila Kathleen McBroom, and when the trooper asked her why she was driving erratically, she said she was on her way to work at Elmendorf Air Force Base, where she worked for the Army Corps of Engineers. After McBroom passed the roadside sobriety test, the trooper let her go with the assumption that she was on her way back to work. But that was the last time anybody would see or speak to McBroom again. The next day, on October 28th, husband would report her missing, and then 3 days later, on October 31st, they would find her abandoned 1996 green GMC pickup truck in the same area that the trooper pulled her over, right by that pullout at mile marker 106 on the Seward Highway, except her truck was on the opposite side of the road. And when the troopers searched the vehicle, they found McBroom's cell phone and all of her belongings untouched in the cab of the truck. There were no signs of foul play, and the truck was in working mechanical order, so there was no reason why it wouldn't run. No one knows what happened to Sheila McBroom, and no one has heard from her since. On July 4th, 2012, 66-year-old Paul Michael Lemitri was competing in the Mount Marathon 5K in Seward, Alaska. Now, this 5K race is unlike any other 5K race in the world, and it takes extreme to a whole new level. It is one of the oldest races in the world, and it is widely considered one of the hardest and most grueling 5Ks in the world. Participants start the race in downtown Seward, where they make their way to the bottom of Mount Marathon, and from that point, it's basically a straight climb up to the halfway point, where they turn around and then come back down. It takes runners on average 30 to 45 minutes to make it up to the halfway point, climbing over 3,000 feet in elevation at around 2 miles per hour on average. And it only takes them about 10 to 15 minutes to come back down at an average speed of 10 to 12 miles per hour. So you get the idea. It is crazy steep, and there are always injuries. The weather that day was particularly terrible, and despite being in great physical shape, Paul was really struggling to get up to that halfway point, which, to be fair, I think we all would be. But that didn't stop him. He was determined to get up to the halfway point and get back down and finish the race. At around 6 p.m., race officials started packing up the course and started making their way down the mountain, where they came across Paul on his way up. They said he looked fine and that he wasn't distressed at all, and they actually talked to him and asked him how he was doing, and he stated he was fine. Now, there's no official cutoff time for this race, and the course is well marked, so the officials said good luck to Paul and let him continue so he could finish the race. When Paul wasn't back down at the finish line 2 hours later at 8 p.m., his family started to panic, and when he still hadn't arrived at 9, they contacted race officials who contacted the police. A large search and rescue operation was launched, but they would never find any trace of Paul. And later that year, they ended up declaring him legally dead. On September 9th, 2013, Alan Foster was flying his Piper PA-32-260 plane from Yucatan to Anchorage. He was on the tail end of a grueling 4,000-mile flight to Anchorage from Atlanta, where he had picked up his new Piper plane. Alan was in a great mood because the night before he had called and spoke with his daughter, and he was excited to be on his way home to see his family. And Alan was a very experienced pilot. He had over 10,000 flight hours in a variety of different types of aircraft. And he had worked for companies like Marked Air and Greatland Air Cargo and even FedEx, flying all around the state. And he was very familiar with this particular location from Yucatan to Anchorage. He had flown it many times before. Flying was second nature to Alan, so he did all the stuff he was supposed to do. He started with his pre-check flight list, where he checked the wheels, the doors, the gauges, the emergency kit. Just after takeoff, he contacted the Juneau Flight Service and asked about the weather conditions. He also made an alternate plan in case the weather got bad and he needed to land in an emergency. 18 minutes later, at 3:38 p.m., Alan's Piper was picked up on the radar flying at 1,100 feet between the Gulf of Alaska and the Malice Bar Glacier. Alan Foster and his brand new Piper PA plane were never seen or heard from again. Thank you for watching 5 Unexplained Disappearances in the Alaska Triangle. Hit that like button if you'd like to see more spooky content just like this.